Thank you very much for joining me here today. I'm Don Ma. To start off, some information on Evergrande. Bondholders of the Chinese property giant could be waiting years for potentially tiny payouts, and this is as the developer's court-ordered liquidation gets underway. A specialist with S&P Global Ratings said bondholders will likely be getting pennies on the dollar. In a new report, the agency found recovery rates were under 3% on average for offshore default cases of Chinese developers. And compared to onshore rates, it's about 8%. Now, Evergrande, who has more than $300 billion in liabilities, was placed into liquidation by a Hong Kong court, and liquidators have already been appointed on the situation. Now, after years of strain on American budgets, some economists say the Federal Reserve is making them optimistic. Meanwhile, a tax break package is moving through Congress with fairly strong bipartisan support. Here's what the latest economic news means for you.
This is a surprise to me, and it is a delightful surprise.
Some economists think Americans are in for a personal budget boost. The Federal Reserve is signaling it could cut interest rates in the near future. That's after months of hikes and yesterday's vote to hold steady.
We're looking at continuation of the good data that we've been seeing.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell says the board is feeling confident about inflation, but not too confident.
He's the Fed chair. He needs to be super duper careful. I only need to be somewhat careful, and so I'm going to say we've had a soft landing.
That means reducing the rate of inflation without triggering a recession.
Now, the question is, how close to that target, to that 2% rate, do we really need to get before the Fed feels comfortable cutting rates?
Powell says cuts probably won't start until after March, but rates on some loans are starting to come down already.
We've already seen mortgage rates come down a little bit in anticipation of those coming cuts.
Meanwhile, a $78 billion tax bill is heading to the Senate after clearing the House last night. It would expand the child tax credit and revive some expired corporate benefits. The bill has fairly strong bipartisan support. That has some analysts feeling confident about its chances, but not too confident.
And U.S. senators on Wednesday grilled leaders of the biggest social media companies and said Congress must quickly pass legislation. And this is as one lawmaker accused the companies of having blood on their hands for failing to protect children from escalating threats of sexual predators on their social media platforms. Here's the report.
Could all of the witnesses please stand to be sworn in?
U.S. senators grilled CEOs from the world's biggest social media and messaging firms on Wednesday in a hearing that focused on efforts to better protect children on their platforms from sexual exploitation. And the tone was set almost immediately. Here's the ranking Republican member, Senator Lindsey Graham, to Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg.
You and the companies before us, I know you don't mean it to be so, but you have blood on your hands. You have a product. You have a product that's killing people.
The hearing marks the latest effort by lawmakers to address the concerns of parents and mental health experts that social media companies put profits over making sure their platforms do not harm children.
Online child sexual exploitation includes the use of online platforms to target and groom children.
Democratic Senator Dick Durbin cited statistics from a nonprofit group that showed financial sextortion, in which a predator tricks a minor into sending explicit photos and videos, had skyrocketed last year. Zuckerberg testified along with ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino, Snap CEO Evan Spiegel, TikTok CEO Xiaozi Chu, and Discord CEO Jason Citron, and the executives defended their efforts to protect their users.
We make careful product design choices to help make our app inhospitable to those seeking to harm teens.
X has zero tolerance towards any material that features or promotes child sexual exploitation.
But when pressed by one lawmaker about a proposed bill that would require platforms disclose data collection methods and algorithms, the representatives demurred. Here's Democratic Senator Chris Coons.
Is there any one of you willing to say now that you support this bill? Mr. Chairman, let the record reflect a yawning silence from the leaders of the social media platforms. Thank you.
Both Democratic and Republican lawmakers are looking at ways of removing protections enjoyed by social media platforms under what's known as Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, granting them legal immunity from most types of content on their sites. Advocates of reform say opening up these companies to liability will force them to clamp down on harmful content.
It is now time to repeal Section 230.
As Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse said it,
your platforms really suck at policing themselves.
And some senators took the opportunity to grill the tech executives, primarily Meta's Zuckerberg, who bristled under the pointed accusations. Here's part of a fiery exchange with Republican Josh Hawley.
Have you compensated any of the victims? These girls, have you compensated them?
I don't believe so.
Why not?
The senator then prodded the CEO to stand up and apologize to families of victims harmed by social media sitting in the gallery.
They're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
Social media sites have been under fire over content moderation. X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, has loosened moderation since its takeover by Elon Musk. This week, the company blocked searches for pop singer Taylor Swift after fake sexually explicit images of Swift spread on the platform. Free speech advocates warn that removing protections for platforms hosting content could lead to a clampdown on expression online.
From what sent AI stocks skidding lower to how translation bots are going to the Olympics, we round up the biggest news stories from the week on the AI revolution.
From a reality check for AI stocks to the bot with an Olympic mission, this is Generation AI. Tech stocks took a tumble after earnings from big players in artificial intelligence delivered quarterly results that failed to impress. Google and Microsoft have faced surging costs for servers, data centers, and research. That's irked investors. In all, AI-related stocks saw $190 billion wiped off their market value. China has approved more than 40 AI models for public use over the past 6 months. Big names including Xiaomi are among those to get a green light. Beijing has been requiring firms to get approval since August, aiming to keep a close eye on the tech. US watchdogs are taking a closer look at AI deals. The Federal Trade Commission has ordered tech giants Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Anthropic to hand over details on tie-ups with AI firms and cloud service providers. Regulators are worried that the new tech is being dominated by a few big players. Visitors to the Paris Olympics this summer will get a helping hand from AI. The city's public transport network is providing staff with AI-supported translation devices. They can interpret 16 different languages and will stay in use after the games wrap up. And after profits fell by a third over the latest quarter, Samsung is hoping the expansion of AI can help drive a revival for its memory chips and tech. Cutting-edge chips and server products for AI are among its priorities for the coming year. Samsung is hoping to catch up to its local rival, SK hynix, which is also banking on chip prices improving.
Meanwhile, as the collective strength of mega-cap stocks continue to push U.S. equities to record highs, there's renewed focus on the risks from the so-called Magnificent Seven's outsized weight on the S&P 500. Analysts say that the market's narrow leadership has become increasingly unhealthy. Now, the Magnificent Seven, which includes Amazon, Alphabet, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla, they now account for nearly 29% of the S&P 500. And because of the weight of the seven holds, analysts at JP Morgan warned that there could be serious impacts to the S&P 500 if their stocks fall. All of the seven were trading lower after recent earnings reports from Microsoft and Alphabet, which weighed on the S&P. And one of the world's largest container liner is reporting a significant drop in earnings last year as it expects trouble in the Red Sea to continue for months. The head of Germany's HapagLloyd told the reporters attacks on cargo vessels by Yemen-based Houthi rebels are unlikely to end soon, and at the earliest, he sees a resolution in 6 months if a political deal and mission to protect rates can be reached. The shipping company and others have been forced to take longer, more expensive trips around Africa. HapagLloyd reported a fraction of earnings for last year, about $3 billion compared to $17 billion for the year before. As conflict in the Red Sea continues, what does the turmoil mean in terms of how much you and I are paying for certain goods? It could depend on how long the attacks go on. Here's more on what's at stake.
Bab al-Mandab, a small bottleneck in the Red Sea, which translates as Gate of Grief. For centuries, it was mainly the undercurrents and reefs that captains feared. Today, it is the Houthi rebel attacks from neighbouring Yemen, sparking global diversions away from the Red Sea. Shipping research from the London Stock Exchange Group estimates that diverting a tanker from Asia to northwest Europe around the Cape of Good Hope adds almost $1 million per voyage, while doubling the shipping time. How much of that will be passed on to the consumer is not yet clear, but some analysts say the impact may not be as dire as feared in the short term.
In terms of how this could actually feed down the supply chain to the end consumer and boost the price level of goods and services that we consume in our economies, the value of the shipping service is actually a very, very small fraction of the total value of the good or service that you're buying. So there is actually limited scope for that to seriously cause inflation.
The severity of the impact will inevitably depend on the length of the crisis.
Initially, we thought this was going to be a fairly short disruption. Now I think our base case is more going towards month of disruptions, and that means a lot more cost.
The International Monetary Fund warned this week that attacks in the Red Sea, coupled with the ongoing war in Ukraine, risked spikes in food, energy and transportation costs. They also warned that if there were to be an escalation into a wider conflict in the Middle East, it would threaten global growth.
It's not the shipping costs themselves that are getting out of hand. It is if this endangers energy supplies. Then we'd see oil prices rise. Then we'd see gas prices rise. And against that is the sort of thing that's going to spoil the party.
China, just the latest affected country to call for an end to the disruption on Tuesday.
The Red Sea is a crucial international trade route for goods and energy. We hope to avoid tensions in the Red Sea and call for an end to attacks on civilian vessels.
Disruption in the Red Sea follows disruption of Ukraine's wheat exports after Russia's invasion. It also follows chaos in the shipping industry during the COVID pandemic. Another reminder of just how sensitive global supply chains can be to unpredicted shock. Paula Hancock's CNN Abu Dhabi.
Meanwhile, Boeing executives on Wednesday stood by their financial targets for 2025 and 2026 and said the company is working hard to regain the confidence of regulators and customers after a mid-air cabin panel blowout on a 737 MAX aircraft. And it's lifting its shares 6.1%. Here's more on that.
Boeing has faced turmoil following the mid-air blowout on one of its 737 MAX jets. But the aerospace giant is determined to sound bullish. Reporting results Wednesday, the firm declined to give a forecast for this year, saying it just had to focus on delivering quality airplanes. However, it said it would stand by financial and production targets set for future years. It's confident that output of its best-selling MAX jets will still hit 50 per month over 2025 to 26. That's despite US watchdogs vetoing plans to raise production right now. The outlook cheered investors, sending Boeing shares over 6% higher. But safety remains a concern, following apparent quality control issues at the company and its suppliers. Chief Executive Dave Calhoun has vowed to regain the trust of regulators, travellers and customers. But he knows the company faces scrutiny at the highest levels. On Wednesday, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said Washington was watching.
Obviously we're concerned. We want to put American safety. We put American safety first.
Most of the 171 MAX jets that were grounded after the blowout have now returned to service. But the drama could mean delays in certifying new versions of the plane, which is Boeing's cash cow. That could see it lose more ground to European rival Airbus, which already has a big lead in narrow-body jets. On Wednesday, Boeing reported a fourth-quarter loss of 47 cents per share, beating analyst forecasts.
A growing TikTok trend might be helping Gen Z become more financially responsible. It's called loud budgeting, and the original video has been viewed more than 1 million times on the social media platform. Take a look at this.
Out, quiet luxury. In, loud budgeting.
It started as a joke, but turns out loud budgeting could be solid financial advice.
It's really about starting somewhere, and it's really a journey, financial literacy.
The viral TikTok trend is all about talking openly with friends and family about how much money you are willing to spend, when, and where.
It's a hard economy, and I think we all need to be for real, and just kind of stop living lives we can afford.
So I came to Blaze to pick up pizza for myself and my husband because 2024, I'm not paying for delivery services.
Financial advisors say the accountability is a good step, but budgeters also need to set specific goals and follow through.
It's hard to be loud about something you don't have, right?
The trend is part of a larger generational shift in spending habits as Gen Z and millennials, burdened with record student loan debt and economic instability, have learned to tighten their wallets.
One of the key things driving it is this more honest approach to spending money and being more open.
It also departs from long-held social taboos around discussing money, but etiquette experts say loud budgeting is mostly positive as long as you don't overshare.
You walk a fine line when you start making other people feel uncomfortable, or they don't want to ask you to go anyplace because they know it's going to be a hard no.
Recent groundbreaking advances in generative artificial intelligence have divided opinions in the music industry. ChatGPT-style generative AI can already produce original sounds, lyrics, or entire songs on its own, while artists often use simpler AI to enhance their sound. Here's the story.
Using artificial intelligence to make music is a topic that has divided opinions in the industry.
It's never going to replace live music.
It's absolutely not going to go away.
I don't like it. We don't like it.
Thanks to recent groundbreaking technological advances, generative AI can already produce original sounds, lyrics, or entire songs on its own. Robots are now making music as digital pop stars, while existing artists often use simpler AI to enhance their sound. As the technology continues to develop, will AI mean the death of original music or herald a new era of creativity? Inside this studio at London's Queen Mary University, music meets cutting-edge tech. PhD student Max Graf showcases Nets, a virtual instrument played by wearing an augmented reality headset, which tracks hand movements to create corresponding outputs like notes or chords. While Andrea Mortanelli fiddles with the Hitar, an advanced guitar with AI sensors which read movements to make drum and synthesizer sounds.
The way it works is that it's got a little bit of like a simple artificial intelligence that tracks whether you're coming down with the heel or you're coming down with the fingers, and it's consistent all across the body. So if you have different techniques, if you have different percussive techniques, you can all use them.
While artists have used technology for creative purposes since the 1950s, the use of AI, like Nets and the Hitar, could be the newest tool to experiment with music. Speaking to Reuters, UK alternative rock artist Youngblood believes AI could be a tool for his music.
It allows me to get another space of inspiration or like another way of thinking. I think it's never going to replace live music, I think, and that's mainly the way I lead from. So like, I'll use it in a scenario where I'll be able to take a beat off a track, or I'll be able to pull a guitar line off a track to take me to another direction.
Other musicians, like alternative rock duo the Nova Twins, disagree.
I don't like it. We don't like it. I feel like you need AI to help you write a song, or especially when it's for a likeness, that's not cool.
The technology has recently seen the return of the Beatles, featuring the voice of John Lennon extrapolated with AI from an old recording. Warner Music has also signed a deal to recreate the voice of late French singer Edith Piaf. While labels and streaming companies partner to market the technology, many experts say AI raises legal or ethical concerns, especially when generative AI regulation is still in early stages. Abbas Latwala is the Director of Global Legal Policy at the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry.
The sort of problem that we've faced is that there have been a real proliferation of AI developers who have trained AI models with large-scale amounts of copyright works without actually getting any authorization for doing so, and then using those tools to generate new content that actually competes with the very works that they've misappropriated.
So what does the future look like for AI in the music industry? Dr. Mathieu Battet is the Senior Lecturer at Queen Mary University for Digital Media.
I think AI can have its place in the music production chain, again, if it's guided in the right way, and if we ensure that the musicians keep a certain amount of control, and performers as well.
IBM is now rejecting remote work and has told its managers to return to the office or they can leave altogether. According to a memo from its senior vice president, US-based managers were told to immediately report in person or exit their role. The new policy requires executives and managers to be in person at least 3 days a week. Those who are working remotely more than 50 miles from an office have until August to move closer. But employees now have fewer office options since the tech firm has shed some of its real estate. IBM said that there will be some exceptions for employees with medical issues or military service. Earlier this week, Elon Musk announced that a brain chip implementation has occurred successfully on a human patient. Here's the take from NTD's Sean Marshall.
In a Monday post on X, Elon Musk said that the first Neuralink product is called telepathy, which he said will enable users to control phones or computers just by thinking. He added that initial users would be those who have lost use of their limbs. Regulating brain-computer interfaces, also known as BCIs, like Elon Musk's Neuralink, presents a complex and evolving challenge. The FDA normally declines to comment on Neuralink, citing laws for keeping commercial information private.
I have heard that they're recruiting people who have ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or some types of paralysis. So I'm guessing that in the future, they won't just be using the Neuralink to tell your phone what to do or to move a cursor on a computer screen or play a game, but to actually send the signals to a robot or send the signals to a prosthetic limb, for example, or even if they follow what this group in Switzerland did, you could directly stimulate the spinal cord if that's intact.
The FDA's guidance on BCIs is termed leapfrog guidance. It's designed to be regularly updated as the technology evolves. Globally, very few organizations have been given regulatory approval to implant brain devices. A peer-reviewed article by the AMA Journal of Ethics said, judgments about implantable brain-computer interface device risks and benefits are not within the realm of competency of the FDA. The paper suggests that a new governing body, rather than the FDA, should regulate implantable brain-computer interface devices, especially those used for human enhancement. This new body would need to assess the risks and benefits of such devices, including their safety and efficacy, and have some conception of what good means for society. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Sluggish paycheck growth for Americans could be a sign for the Federal Reserve that they can cut interest rates, potentially. Compensation measured by the Employment Cost Index rose just 0.9% in the last quarter of the year. The ECI is widely considered one of the better measures of labor market slack and a predicator for core inflation. Year-on-year labor costs increased just over 4%, the smallest rise since the end of 2021. Economists say slowing wage gains could make the Fed more comfortable cutting rates earlier rather than later. And Shell today reported a 2023 profit of $28 billion. And this is down 30% from the previous year's record. This is as oil and gas prices cooled. Still, though, allowing the firm to increase its dividend by 4% and extended its share purchases. Here's the details.
Falling oil and gas prices hit Shell hard last year. The energy giant reported a profit of $28 billion, down 30% from a year before, when energy prices reached record highs. The British firm also reported Thursday fourth quarter net profit hit $7.3 billion. That was beyond analyst expectations, but again down from $9.8 billion a year earlier. Strong liquefied natural gas trading results helped offset weaker refining and oil trading numbers. Shell lifted its dividend by 4% from the previous quarter, up by a fifth on an annual basis. But there was a worrying sign for the firm. Shell's free cash flow fell to $7 billion in the fourth quarter. It was the lowest in 2023 and less than half the previous year's total. Shell is the first energy major to report full-year results for 2023. ExxonMobil and Chevron are up next and report on Friday. Shell shares were up over 2% after the update.
Sportswear maker Adidas expects operating profit to nearly double to about $542 million this year as the company moves on from its breakup with Kanye West. Take a look at this report.
Adidas is getting over its breakup with Kanye West. The German sportswear giant parted ways with the rapper after he made anti-Semitic comments. That cost it big sales of his Yeezy line of sneakers. But on Wednesday, the firm said its earnings were on the mend. It forecast a near doubling in operating profit to over $542 million this year. The firm also gave an unscheduled preliminary announcement of last year's numbers. Operating profit in 2023 hit about $290 million. That was less than half the previous year's number, but way better than the $108 million loss previously forecast. New CEO Bjorn Gulden, in the job since the start of last year, has been trying to drive a turnaround. The breakup with Kanye had left Adidas with a pile of unsellable shoes worth around $1.3 billion. However, fourth quarter earnings were helped by a decision not to totally write off the stock. Instead, Adidas will sell the sneakers at cost, recouping it hundreds of millions of dollars.
And thank you very much for joining me here today. That's all the stories we have. See you next week.